here we go. There it is.
So welcome everyone. I'm Jerri Clark. I'm a resource coordinator with Washington PAVE, and we're here this evening to talk about mindfulness and self-care for families during COVID-19 and of course in all circumstances. How do we take care of ourselves? How do we stay mindful? How do we stay present for our families when things are difficult? So I actually want to start with a little bit of a mindfulness practice, and I'd like to ground us in the word resilience. I took this picture at the Oregon coast just a few weeks ago because the starfish remind me of resilience. They are coming back. There was a time a few years ago when the starfish were experiencing something that's been called a wasting disease, and almost 90% of the starfish were disappearing from our coasts. And they're coming back. And I like to use the image of a starfish because it holds to the rock, because it is the starfish's nature to hold to the rock and let the experience of being wash over, noticing, taking nourishment from, but also letting things wash on by. So we're going to start our evening by just getting grounded in the space that we occupy. So we're not clinging to a rock, but we're perhaps sitting on furniture. Depending on what kind of furniture you're sitting on, you might have your feet on the ground. So just notice any part of your body that's touching the ground or touching furniture. Notice the lighting in the room that you're in. Notice any sounds that are within your awareness, either close sounds or far away sounds. Notice the temperature, and it might be complicated. There might be aspects of coolness and aspects of warmth happening all at once. Just becoming present in the space around you. And then start to notice your inner landscape. What is the feeling of being inside of you this evening? And as you tune into the experience of being, just notice your breathing. Notice breath as it comes into your body. Notice breath as it leaves your body. And as you start to direct your attention to your breath, you might also notice that you're thinking. Thoughts come in, thoughts go out, just like the water that washes over a starfish. And each thought comes with it a choice. Do I attend to this thought? Or do I let it just kind of wash over like the water that a starfish doesn't necessarily need to attend to? In this way, we can allow thinking to be happening and also kind of floating away all at once. Notice breath as it comes in. Notice breath as it leaves. And thinking that can wash through and around, but not necessarily grab for our attention. And as you become aware of your sense of being in the space that you occupy with this breath that you claim, inhale a sense of power, energy, self-control. And as you exhale, perhaps even notice a sound that's available on that exhale, and exhale like the sea that rolls back away from the beach and takes it all away and leaves you cleansed. Breathing in a feeling of power. Breathing out like the sea, a feeling of being cleansed. And then if you want to, you can start to count. How long does it take for you to inhale? It doesn't matter how fast you count, just count. And consider making your exhale match. So the count for the inhale And the count for the exhale is roughly the same time. We'll just take 2 more breaths in that way, grounded in the power that comes in, the cleansing exhale, the evenness of breath, and this knowledge that we don't have to cling to every thought that washes through. And then once again, pay attention to where your body might be touching the ground or furniture, the quality of the light in the room that you're in, the feeling of the air, any sounds that are available to you, and welcome yourself back into the space. And just notice if there were any shifts that happened for you in that short mindfulness experiment. So mindfulness is nothing fancy. It's a way of becoming present and being with what is. And I hope that throughout this presentation this evening, that will be reinforced for you so that mindfulness doesn't feel like something accessible to somebody who's more advanced or more esoteric. Mindfulness is for everyone. Young children, individuals with disabilities, everyone can access some aspect of mindfulness. So PAVE has been around since 1979. Our goal is to empower families with the knowledge and resources that they need to support themselves and their children. Our headquarters are in Tacoma, and we have resource coordinators positioned throughout the state. Anyone who wants our direct assistance can go to our website, wapave.org, WAPAVE.org, and fill out a helpline request form. Primarily, we support the navigation of special education systems, but we also do our best to resource families in any way that's helpful. We do have on our homepage on our website a Black Lives Matter statement of solidarity and commitment to action. We absolutely see, hear, and stand with those individuals who want to end systemic racism, and we do our best in our work to call out racism where it presents itself. Please note that there are resources throughout this webinar that are not part of PAVE programming. We do not endorse these programs, but provide them for information purposes only. So this evening's training is built into 4 parts. The first part has to do with getting organized, having a plan for the family that includes mindfulness and self-care as part of every day's design. The second part of the training are some specific strategies for being with big feelings that are very real and absolutely happening for individuals of all ages during this time. The third section will provide some additional specific breathing practices, and the fourth section is going to be a few resource slides to direct you toward other possible places to access helpful information. Much of this information is also included in an article that I wrote for PAVE's website called Stay Home Help. Get organized, feel big feelings, and breathe. And that is already on our website in written form. So the first section that we'll look at is how to have a plan. You want a daily schedule. It's nice if it's written, and it's nice if it's visual for children who might access it visually rather than through written words. But the daily schedule has some flexibility. What are the steps that are going to guide the family toward opportunities to really feel like the day has been meaningful? and fun and interesting, engaging. And mindfulness and self-care can be built into every day's schedule. It's important that the schedule expects and accepts that there will be difficult moments, and we'll talk about some strategies for managing those. And that individualized recovery strategies are pre-planned. Seeking guidance from experts can be really helpful, and considering that everyone is learning social emotional skills on this lifelong journey. Families, including parents, the children, everyone is doing the learning. And that can be really important as you're designing your plan. So a daily schedule is partly relevant to mindfulness because having a plan creates predictability, which actually physically can relax the brain. It also ensures that everyone in the family's schedule is going to have opportunities to contribute and to accomplish something. Contribution and accomplishment are critical aspects of belonging. Neuroscience has shown that 80% of the brain's work is trying to belong. So ensuring that everyone has an opportunity to contribute and to master something and feel the results of accomplishment can be really important, and having an organized plan for the day can support that. This chart went viral at the beginning of COVID-19 last spring. It's on a website called mother.ly. And it's a really simple example of how to begin in designing a plan for the days. Pinterest and other locations online have lots of examples of pictures and words that might contribute to a daily schedule. This is just a few examples of how the routine can create that predictability for everyone, and everyone can check. I can tell you with these two little grandsons, if I say, "What's on the schedule?" they immediately feel like we're all a team working together. Or if they have an idea about something they want to do, but it's not going to work right now, I can say, let's put that on the schedule for tomorrow. Does that belong in the morning or in the afternoon? And they're contributing, and that buy-in can be really, really calming to everyone in the family. This is another website that provides some information about the importance of scheduling, talks about how a schedule brings security and how children tend to respond better when they know what to expect. It's simply mom.com, mom.com. So the reason that getting organized is part of a training about mindfulness is that by having a schedule, the mind has more room to experience the day. It doesn't get crowded out by as much anxiety. So getting organized is a mindfulness practice. Also important is that the schedule has some breathing room, and it might be helpful as a family to plan ahead. What type of event would warrant a change in plans? If you consider the answers ahead of time and are prepared, then you're still going to have some predictability even when something unpredictable happens. Oh yes, this is one of those events that does mean we're going to shift our schedule a little bit. So planning ahead to change your plans can maintain that feeling of predictability that helps everyone stay a little calmer. So here's a website with some additional help. It's called Confident Parents, Confident Kids. You can actually sign up for something called Mindful Mondays. There are instructional videos, and there's a variety of templates for designing an emotional safety plan for different family members. So the example I have here at the bottom is for a mother. So mommy needs 5 minutes, and you decide ahead of time where you're going to go to cool down if you need your own mindful moment to restore stability in your own thought processes. So having a plan for what each member can do and practicing it ahead of time can make sure that everyone responds with emotional intelligence when there is a crisis. So this is one website that you might want to do some deeper research if those strategies resonate with you. Another website with some strategies is the Child Mind Institute, which has a whole section on mindful parenting, noting that what mindfulness is, I said this a little bit at the beginning, mindfulness is anything that helps an individual take a moment to slow down, stay present, and come together. It's not anything fancy. Meditation can be as simple as noticing where you are in space, what's going on in your body and mind, and how to be present with that. So an option for a way to take a mindful walk in nature and make mindfulness part of the day is to just notice, what does the air feel like? What can you hear? Is there the sound of birds? Today we heard an airplane. What do the trees smell like, or the plants, or the bark mulch? What does the sun smell like? If every family member contributes to that conversation about the experience, then you've built in that opportunity to contribute and to be mindful. So social emotional learning is a best practice in schools now. So social emotional learning is an aspect of learning in school when understanding of social communication, emotional regulation is an aspect of a student's needs when accessing education. However, social emotional learning is not limited to children in school. It is a lifelong process through which everyone learns to effectively manage their emotions, to reach toward goals, to experience empathy, to maintain positive relationships, and to make responsible decisions. Technical Assistance Center nationwide for social emotional learning is called CASEL. That stands for the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. They have a lot of resources for educators and families, but it doesn't have to be complicated. A simple way to explore your own social emotional learning is to consider, how's it going? How am I doing with communicating my needs? How am I doing with feeling and experiencing a whole range of emotions and being with those without becoming dysregulated? Do I need to seek further resources? Do I need to consult with other adults to strategize in a way that might be more helpful? Children model what they see, and adults who are working on their own social emotional learning are going to be modeling that for children who are in the process of learning SEL skills. There are many, many examples online. This is an inexpensive weekly schedule that teachers might use. This is a website called Teachers Pay Teachers. I just share this as a possible launch pad. So if a family's designing a schedule and the child is learning from home, then you can ask the teacher, can you please collaborate with me in designing a schedule, because I'm building a family schedule and I want to start with what the school schedule is. So you might get started with what's on the menu for the school part of the day, and then build from that to make a workable plan for the family. Again, with that breathing room that is so needed. So a little bit of my parent training and information hat coming on. Related services, if a student has an individualized education program, generally cover occupational therapy, physical therapy, nursing, speech therapy. If a school-based service is necessary for the student to access the free appropriate public education that is the entitlement of an eligible student in special education, then the related services become part of the IEP. While students are learning from home, a related service that might be new and needed could be parent training. So if the parent needs some training in understanding how to participate in progress monitoring to know what's going on with the student's learning, if the parent needs some training in order to guide the child's behavior while learning from home, that can be included in the IEP. Social, emotional, and behavioral skills instruction and how to teach those to the child and be consistent can be part of parent training. So something families can ask is there someone at school who can provide expertise to support a flexible, workable daily routine? And is it possible that parent training as a related service is something that's really needed in order for this child to access education? Why does this come up in a mindfulness training? Because it's hard to be a regulated family caregiver if children's learning is just a constant struggle. So smoothing the way, smoothing the path, getting the information, the expertise that's needed so that everyone's acting with skill can be part of mindfulness that supports the family. So moving to the second part of our training this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about big feelings. Humans are emotional. It is our nature to feel, respond to what we feel. And when we repress emotions, they get squished. And when they get squished, it's sort of like something under pressure. It can actually loom larger when you try to repress an emotion. So how do we allow ourselves to feel what's real? This video, and this is a hyperlink available through the PDF of this program, is maybe a minute long. And it's an adult talking to Elmo about how to go ahead and share what is being experienced. What are you feeling? What's that like? And it's simple and really quite profound when someone is able to support someone else in feeling what is real, true, and happening. So this video will also take you to a whole menu of additional Sesame Street opportunities to explore feelings with young ones. I actually shared this with my grandsons today and they just loved it. So a piece of this for all ages and abilities is how to talk openly with someone about big feelings. So you might ask, what are you feeling right now? And that's where it's super skillful to be really quiet, to have a very non-confrontational posture, to be patient, to wait, and to listen. And active listening means listening without getting ready to talk. You're not trying to figure out what you're going to say next. You're trying to empathize with a person who's sharing something with you and really understand their experience. When there is an opportunity that it's appropriate for you to respond verbally, you might say, wow, that's a lot to feel. Can you tell me more? And that's a way of validating those big feelings without judging them and without trying to fix them. So this is one way of starting to understand how to be with big feelings and recognize that it's actually okay to not be okay. And we can teach our kids that it's okay to not always feel okay. And being heard and seen and loved in the experience of sharing something that is big and maybe scary and hard and overwhelming can empower us to know that we can have those big experiences of feeling without being bulldozed by them. So the work of Dan Siegel, a neuroscientist who manages a website called MindSight, talks about an upstairs brain and a downstairs brain. And this is a great tool for teaching even really young children about what's happening neurologically when they start to get overwhelmed or even lose control by flipping their lid. So the downstairs brain represents the amygdala, which is the deep primitive part of the brain where emotions live. So when we get overwhelmed by emotion, we go into this very primitive fight, flight, freeze place in the brain that experiences emotion without really accessing any kind of problem-solving ability. The frontal cortex is what Dan Siegel calls the upstairs brain, and that's where learning and problem solving live. When the lid is entirely flipped, an individual cannot access the upstairs brain. We're living all downstairs. So as caregivers, we can ask ourselves, am I in my upstairs brain? And if we're not, we need to have a strategy to get back upstairs, to get back into cognitive thought processes and problem solving before we speak, before we make decisions about what to do. And we can model this for our children, and we can also teach them, oh, are you in your upstairs brain right now? No? Let's relax, chill. It's all okay. Let's just be. Let's just be. So here's some other ideas. Oh, it's in the next slide. We'll come back to that. Another concept from Dan Siegel is name it to tame it. So we can strengthen emotional intelligence by basically working out this emotional place in our minds by asking ourselves where we are experiencing a big emotion in our bodies. So we're going to do this right now. So again, just acknowledge the space that you occupy. Notice the feeling around your body. And then start to turn inward and notice any experiences happening within your body. Maybe something is a little bit painful today. Maybe there's fatigue, hunger, thirst. Just tune in and notice where in your body are you experiencing a feeling right now? Are there words or even images that you might use to describe the feeling that is there in your body right now? Taking it a little further, is there one experience within your body that seems to be talking louder than another one? And what happens if you put your attention there? What happens if you breathe into that place in your body and send it an essence of kindness and patience? What's happening in your body now? Then bring yourself back to awareness of the space that you occupy, the sounds, what you're looking at. So that was super short. We did that in probably less than a minute. Very, very brief mindfulness exercise that you can do in the middle of whatever you're doing. It's also something you can teach your children. What do you feel in your body? Can you describe it? Is your tummy angry? You know, if they say they feel something in your tummy, what's your tummy's emotion? And it's a way of acknowledging and validating the experiences that can be very real and very scary if they're not named in order to tame them. So here's some strategies for overwhelm, and I recommend plan ahead. So if you're feeling scared or sad, do you like to have a drink of water? How are you going to have that ready? A favorite blanket, a stuffed animal. If you're helping someone else who's overwhelmed, kind voice, move slowly, back away, get low, non-threatening, low lighting. Sometimes music helps, sometimes it doesn't. Depends on the sensory preferences of the individual. Acknowledging the feelings. I understand this is hard. I understand this makes you mad or that you're scared. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here with you. Sometimes movement options help, sometimes they don't. Some children can re-regulate by jumping on a little trampoline or wrapping up in a sensory blanket. So each individual can have a safety plan for what to do when overwhelm happens. Talking it through, practicing it, also creates elements of that predictability, and the predictability of having a plan can actually start to reduce the overwhelm from the get-go, because it's okay. I know what to do when I start to feel this way. When I start to feel my lid maybe getting ready to flip, I've got a plan. So Velcro and Teflon are great metaphors for helping us understand an aspect of our neurobiology. So our evolutionary brains have been trained over time to cling to danger, fear, and strong negative emotions like Velcro. So the saber-toothed tiger was a major threat in primitive human history. A saber-toothed tiger, you get a really complicated memory around a threat from a saber-toothed tiger. You know what the tiger's breath smells like. You know what time of day that tiger might come get you. You get a complex memory stuck in your brain because your brain has learned evolutionarily to remember those things to protect the body, okay? On the other hand, watching a gorgeous sunset or feeling all cozy and safe in bed doesn't keep you safe. So the brain just lets that slide right off like Teflon. I don't need to remember that. That's golden, but I don't need to remember that because it's not going to necessarily protect me. But we can hack our brains a little bit by creating Velcro awesome memories. So when we're in an experience that is pleasant, that feels good, we can be very intentional about laying down neural pathways so that we can get back to that place in our mind and use it as an inner resource. So for example, this picture at the bottom, wrapped up in Velcro, is me in a Hawaiian sunset doing some yoga. The air was warm. I can feel the lava rock on my feet. I was all in. I memorized the feeling of the lighting, the smell of the salt air. All of that gets put into a Velcro memory that's positive if I do it with intention. And that's a way that we can create these pockets of inner resource in our brains that we can access. And it's kind of cool because any piece of that memory, maybe it's the smell, maybe it's the feeling, the touch, maybe it's something that you heard, any sensory piece of that can take you into that whole neural network. So neurons that fire together wire together. So if you get into that wiring through any pathway, any sensory pathway, you can get back to that whole sensation. So I created this as a memory map of one of my inner resources, which is being on the Oregon coast. So this is pictures of my favorite place. And there I can feel the cool breeze in my hair, the smell of salt air, my strong legs walking in the sand, the happiness that I sense in my heart. Maybe there's a seagull squawking in the distance. Maybe it's morning and I remember my shadow. I pick wild huckleberries at the coast and I know what that feels like when they're in my tummy and it was so yummy. Sound of the ocean waves and the warm sun on my face. So these are all different sensory aspects that are wired together in that multisensory memory that becomes an inner resource for me. So if you're in a moment that maybe you kind of want to skip out of for a second to give yourself some empowerment, some strength, a mindfulness practice is to hearken back to a place of inner resource. Can I imagine myself when? And then the flip side of that is when you're in a moment that you acknowledge and recognize as something you want to implant as a Velcro memory, pay attention to every detail and get it all in there, wire it together so that you can come back through multiple pathways to get back to that place of inner resource. So when working with children and or yourself, it can be helpful to have pictures to help identify emotions. So we talked about name it to tame it. So sometimes pictures and visuals can be super helpful. This is a super simple search of Pinterest, and this is just a snip of a few of the examples. There are so many options online, or you can draw your own if you're artistic, or you can have your children help you draw them. There's puzzles that have different emotional faces to them. So helping everyone in the family start to recognize the complexity of the human emotional experience can be kind of a fun project. It can become an art project. It can become a writing project, lots of different ways. There's so many emojis out there right now. This is another exercise. This is little Cam down here in the corner at the lake this summer. You met him if you were on the call right at the start. This is little Cam being contemplative. Another mindfulness practice that I turn to quite often is to consider saying out loud to yourself or inside yourself, if you don't want to speak it out loud, that I recognize that I have feelings and emotions, but that's not who I am. I am not my feelings and my emotions. And when we're able to separate ourselves from our biggest, highest self, from that experience of feeling or emotion, it gives us some power over it. Is it possible to catch those feelings in the act of forming or changing? So you can have this conversation with yourself, or you can have this conversation with someone else, but noticing, oh, I'm experiencing an emotion. Wow, I feel a lot of blank. Where do I feel it? That body sensing piece might be part of it. I'm having this experience, but this experience is temporary and it's happening within me, but it isn't who I am. I am bigger than this experience I'm having. This can be a profound mindfulness practice when we start to feel derailed by our own emotions. So easy is the magic word when it comes to a calming breath. We did the counting practice at the start. Often we hear, take a deep breath. And it's helpful to understand just the very basics about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic aspects of our nervous system. When we breathe in, it stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, which is the get up and go part of our nervous system. When we exhale, it stimulates the parasympathetic side of our nervous system, which is the rest, digest, heal, chillax side of our nervous system. So take a deep breath is actually stimulating your sympathetic nervous system. If it's not followed by an equal and opposite exhale, taking a deep breath can actually make you more anxious. And there's a lot of research around that. So instead of take a deep breath, how about I'm going to do some even steady breathing. So we're going to do a little experiment right now, and we're just going to count to 6 with each other. And if you need to go a little faster, a little slower, it's fine. But we're just going to do 5 deep breaths, and I'm going to show you my hand. This is when you can teach children. And you can do this in mirror to me if you want to, but I'm going to use a finger on my other hand to trace the fingers on my lifted hand while we breathe. Okay, so I'm going to start at the thumb side, and I'm going to inhale up my thumb, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale down, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale up the next finger, even and steady. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale up the middle. And exhale. I'm at my ring finger. Inhale up. And exhale down. Inhale up. And on this last one, I'm going to exhale all the way to my elbow. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then just breathe normally and just notice. So that's a tool where you get the sensory input of your hand, the touch, the focus. At the same time, you're evening out your breath, something that all ages and most abilities can do. And if your child can't coordinate the fingers, then you do the fingers. You can either use their hand or your own hands and just give them a visual, whatever's appropriate in light of the circumstances. So breathing does get better with practice, and not trying to necessarily slow your breath down or make the breath bigger or stronger or anything, but just being with it can have a profound relaxing effect on the body. Give yourself a break. Breathing is beautiful, it's human, and your body knows what to do. So sometimes we just have to get out of the way and let our body breathe. This is a little meditation. You could even print this slide if you wanted to and have it with you at any time when you need it. It's very similar to what we just did, just without the hand part. So I do have some mindfulness videos on our website, including this hand one. I have some breathing with the ocean videos. I think there are 6 or 7 of them. So if you went to our website and typed mindfulness videos into the search bar, you would find this library. This one of me at the beach is called Breathe to Keep from Flipping Your Lid. There's another one called Ocean Breath. The 5 Fingers Breath is the one we just did. So take a look at those, and they're all about 3 or 4 minutes long. They're all shorter than 5 minutes, and for most ages and abilities, they'll be accessible. Some additional ideas to promote breathing practices include blowing up balloons. So you can talk about the air going into and out of your lungs, into and out of the balloon, how the air moves between the sky and the lungs and the balloon could be an interesting conversation that includes elements of mindfulness and breath practice. Blowing bubbles and watching them float away is both a breath practice and a mindfulness practice. You could, to work on that kind of, I have feelings, but I'm not my feelings, you could write them onto rocks with a Sharpie or paint or whatever you like, and then maybe leave them somewhere in the forest or throw them into a body of water to just recognize that they come and go. And we don't always have the same emotions, that we don't always carry the same emotions with us all the time. So those are some additional ideas that you can do for yourself or with your family. And then I have a few additional resources. These are easy to look at later on the PDF, but the National Federation for Children's Mental Health has a library of activities, self-care and coping strategies that if you have the time and want to do some deeper research, some of them are similar to what we talked about today, and some of them are more I guess, professionally designed. So you could take a look at those as you wish. The Department of Health in Washington State also has a behavioral health toolbox for families. The Healthcare Authority has some ideas about coping with stress and improving wellness. Washington Listens is a hotline specifically designed for taking calls about issues related to the pandemic. So if you're experiencing some anxiety related to the pandemic itself, or if you have some questions about COVID, you can call Washington Listens. Another resource is starttalkingnow.org. That's really specifically for families whose youth might be dealing with some substance use issues, and you want to learn more about how to have those conversations with your young person. Those are also available in Spanish, as are many of these resources. So again, if you wanted direct assistance from PAVE, you could either call this 800 number, which is 800-572-7368, or you could click Get Help on our website homepage, which is wapave.org. We do have language interpretation services available. We also have a Facebook page, Parent Training and Information of Washington. This is a way to navigate our website. Learning in School is where we post our PTI articles. You can search for topics, or you can click Get Help, all available from our homepage. And I've built, so if you get the PDF of this presentation, these are all hyperlinks to content related to COVID. Real quickly reminding you that we are not a legal service agency. We cannot provide legal advice or assistance, and we are not advocates, but we do hope to empower you with resources and information so that you can advocate for your children and families. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I welcome you to turn on your video if you want. Hi, Tanya.
Hi.
And I'll be happy to take any questions, and we can have a little chit chat.
Yeah, and I will stop the recording just in case anybody's, for privacy. So
totally agree. Yeah, let's stop that recording so nobody's being recorded.